So guys, welcome back. Another Mindset Mastermind. Here we are wrapping up the Power of One More, the final chapter, one more. And again, as always with the content in here, every single chapter has been concise, on point. And now this one just about the reset, the restart, what's in you, what life looks like, how to have a bigger, immediate mindset. Man, it's good stuff. And as always, this room is yours. Carrie, your mic's hot. Are you ready to go?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Awesome. What do you got?
I think that when I came to, it was pretty much, it seemed like an overview. And I did really like how the one thing that stood out to me the most while I was reading this last night was that this book had a lot to do with his dad and about how his dad was an alcoholic and all these things and all these bad things. But there was like, even though that his dad was an alcoholic, it was like he never, he talked about how it affected him in so many ways, but it very rarely seemed like there was anything super bad. I mean, there's always something super bad, but he was able as a human to be like, these are all the good things. These are the things I wanted. You're not wanted, but these are the things I took from it. And I took so much goodness from it that I wrote a book for him, for us, but for, about him and what his effect. So I thought that was pretty amazing how something so traumatic could be so legendary.
Well, and I think the big takeaway in what you're putting into the room this morning is that he has chosen to look back at all the things that were right, all the lessons to be had, all, even in the darkest moments, those things have helped him create an amazing life because he looked at it. In essence, he didn't go to the woe is me, blame, victim mentality.
Right.
He went to okay, where's the lesson? Where's the learning? And most importantly, where's the opportunity? Something we can all take away from this chapter.
Yeah.
Caesar, I see you're up as well. What do you got, brother?
Yeah, thanks, Coach. This was a very powerful chat. I mean, this whole book I felt was when you think it's like, oh, that was an okay chapter. This was a really intense one for myself as well, because it just puts you in that one more mentality of appreciating the people that are around you. But I wanted to point out one specific spot on page 240 where it says, it is also to remind you that things are happening for you and not to you. So that was another one as well. When certain things happen, sometimes we feel like, why is this happening to me? And it's just like, this is not, again, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. So I wanted to really bring that to us, because if we feel now with shifting and things are happening, like, why is this happening? It's like, it's happening for a reason. So I wanted to bring that to the group.
Yeah, well, and that right there ties back to that accountability mindset and that opportunity mindset. We can look at anything and have this is happening to me, victim. And yet, as Ed talks about in here, and you take time and time again, Caesar, you're like a leader in the space of, okay, this is happening for me. How do I use this as leverage to take the next step? And I can't wait to continue to watch how you leverage that into growing your family, into your child's future, because this is the beginning of changing the entire trajectory of your family. Celeste, you're up. And then Ryan, you're going to be next, brother.
I'm going to make mine quick because I'm really under the weather. But what I got was, I have the physical book, but I also have the audio, and I've been listening to the audio because I'm out and about. And what I got was his emotion of how important this particular chapter was to him. And if anyone has the audio, you're going to pick up on, there are moments where he is just he's challenged because he's thinking of the love he has for his dad. And it makes the chapter, in my opinion, even more powerful when you hear him talk this book. And the other last thing I wanted to say was I really am also keenly aware that he talks about how to read a room and how important that has been for his life. And I'm thinking how much those that do read a room, how much they take that for granted. When in reality, a lot of people have never had to read the room. They've been in a, thankfully, very fortunate life that they didn't have to be so worried or sensitive to what they said. And to think about that as a skill is, I thought, very powerful. That's all I had to say.
Yeah. So let's tie in what Caesar brought and what Celeste just brought, because he's talking about his childhood here on page 238 in this context. And he's talking about Dad the alcoholic. And he said his drinking happened for me because most of the skills I use to this day happened because I was raised by an alcoholic father. For example, I learned to read body language, tonality, and facial expressions as a young boy. I first developed it by learning how to read which father would come home from work. Would it be a sober and loving father or an intoxicated and detached father? In fact, I got to the point where I could figure this out by how my dad would insert a key in the front door. So again, also going to just how present he also learned to be early on. And Celeste, before you can read the room, you've got to pause and be present in the room. And rather than thinking about what he wanted to say, what he wanted to deliver, how he wants to show up, rather than worrying about looking good and being right, there's the pause of presence to read a room, which is a huge skill that we can all develop. Ryan Van Ornen, brother, you're up, and then Julianne.
So on 240, it says difficult, changing, and traumatic things happen to everyone, which means there will come a time in your life when these things happen to you. Like or not, the clock will run out, and no amount of praying, wishing, or begging will deny this inevitability. Then it goes on to say on 241, you can't stop or slow down the march of time in those inevitable changes. All you can do is make the most of what you have right now. In this way, you can internally guide your fate. It's how you live life with fewer burdens, regrets, anger, and sadness. And yes, it's not easy. Change rarely is. And to me, this is very poignant that we all go through hardship. I never had an easy life growing up. I had a stepfather that was abusive, but that's not who I am now. And the only way to handle those things, in my opinion, is head on. And be the catalyst to change that you want to be for you and take immense direct action. If you allow yourself to sit in that cesspool, you're allowing the victim mindset to become you instead of I will not be a victim. That's my mindset. So, take what you want from there, but that to me was very poignant.
And one other piece I want to add in here, Ryan, in these two sections, because, man, there were 3 lines in there that you kind of just passed by a little bit. One of the immutable laws is that everything comes with an expiration date. Everything. Let that sink in for a moment. Sooner or later, everything ends. The only constant in this world that we're living in is change. It's always going to be happening. And so I'm going to challenge you and everybody else to be present for that change, to be looking for that change, and to lean into it. So many people in this last year in the real estate industry have been sniveling and whining about the changes. I mean, you look at social media and it's just a whine fest rather than leaning into what you can do. And again, Josh, I say no screen here. He's my poster child, though, because he didn't know any better. He didn't know this was a change because he's brand new into the industry and absolutely flipping crushing it because he's focusing on all the things he can control. His attitude, his energy, his enthusiasm, the number of people he talks to, asking for help. Okay, I've talked to somebody. Now what do I do? and getting that help through every single real estate process so he gets better and better and better every day. You know what he's like chasing it first year in real estate? He's now going, I'm going to icon in his first year in this terrible market where everybody's struggling. There's no transactions. Brand new agent, city where he's never been in real estate. He's crushing it. And every one of you can too. Julianne, you're up.
Thank you. There is, I think, the power of one more is taking it one day at a time. It's the small things. It's the little decisions, turning left or turning right, and knowing that you are in the perfect place where you are. For his dad, it was one more. Mom was packed. They were she had him and his sister at the hotel. They were done. He talks about this sometimes live, and how he thought he was going to lose his dad, because mom said, no, we're done. And the words that he put into this, I can only imagine Celeste. I'm like, I want to get the audio version just so I can hear him read this section, because I know I bawl like a baby every time I see him live and he starts talking about either his mortality or his dad's sobriety. And he's so filled with love. And so, but it's one more. It's, you're one, just take it one day at a time. How many people, you're one step away from saving your business, not quitting your business. Don't think about it 5 years from now. And it's so much more easier to manage one day at a time. And when he talks about his dad passing in 2020, what he got to see, and this is when Ed did a huge shift, and he's already very successful, but he did a huge shift in his life after his dad passed away, because he saw how many lives his dad affected and how much it was done through love. All the people who came up and spoke and thanked Eddie for his dad, Ed. And it happened to be another man named Ed who talked to Ed Jr. that night that he decided he had to get sober. And he is the one. And it's funny because he goes, he thought for sure the guy who saved my dad would have been somebody who was old and wise. No, it was somebody who was only 6 months sober. But he was still so relatable to my dad that he was able to break through and help him through this journey. And a beautiful witness. And and that gentleman's name was Ed also. So the synchronicities and signs and beauty of life are just delicious, and I want more of it.
And you never know the lives that you're going to change by just making the connection and having the conversation. By the way, it ties back to that work that we do of having conversations. You may just be reaching out to somebody in the right moment that they need a positive, energetic, enthusiastic voice. Now, the one thing I definitely want in this section, is funny because we're all here in the room and Justin and I are looking at the same content. This one more piece, I want to make sure we get into the room, because this is something that we can leverage to get ourselves to take a higher level of action. I'm going to let Justin run this piece though. Here you go, Justin.
So I was kind of struggling when I got to this page, mostly because on the page before they talked about an ultimatum. I have challenges with ultimatums. I don't know that a whole lot good is born out of them. But as I went on into the following page, and this is what I read, here's the lesson I took from that and want to share with you. Linking huge emotional reasons to what you want to accomplish is the key to why you must be willing to go through the difficult struggles associated with the change. The reasons to change must be overwhelmingly more significant than the obstacles you face, so that those obstacles are dwarfed in comparison. If you show me somebody with big enough reasons to change in their life, I'll show you somebody capable of making the change. That was just super powerful to me. The whole idea that we have goals, we have changes we'd like to make. And it's easy to get caught up on what that obstacle is. So I think that for me, and I think this is part of discipline, is a flag I'm flying at the moment. To get really clear on what those obstacles are and deal with those head on. Like, what is the obstacle? What needs to happen in order to overcome that obstacle? And that why, and really put it all together. So I loved that. I went from looking at an ultimatum and being like, wow, his mom gave dad an ultimatum. That's kind of bullshit. That's how I felt about it. To, okay. So maybe that was required to get that pain big enough to be worth the struggle for him to overcome those obstacles.
Awesome, brother. And here's the interesting part for all of us. We in our business do not really stay in touch with what we're doing and the depth of how much it matters. We don't connect to those significant items. One of the things I've loved to teach for a long time, and many of you have been in the room when I do it, is what is called the pain and pleasure exercise, where we bring the future of what you aren't doing and what the end result, if you don't actually get into activity and change, is going to do, not just to you, to the people around you. I mean, as Ed's dad was looking at the situation where mom said no more, and he was able to get one more opportunity, all of a sudden the pain for himself, but for his kids, not having a dad. Yeah, we all know the significance of a fatherless home. We've seen it in the data and the stats. I'm sure that was heavy on his heart, that he was actually not going to be, as it says in the book, because this was what he told him was the change, that he's going to come back and be the father those kids deserve and the husband worthy of his mom.
Yep.
Had to make that change. Carrie, I know your mic's hot, and you got something else. Bring it in.
It's just real quick. Julianne was talking about the part where, what did she say? Like what did you say? You said something about like reaching out or something, or we were saying about reaching out, making the call, and never know when it's going to affect somebody. So for example, this happened to me the other day. I was doing my cold calls, and then I was talking to somebody that this girl I went on vacation with a long time ago. And she was like, Carrie, I'm so glad you called. She was talking about her license, and she was talking about all these things. And she was like, I was thinking about you. And so like, I didn't even think she was going to remember who the heck I was. That was so long ago. And it wound up, we met up and we had a conversation just personally, and it turned into real estate as well. And I was like, wow, okay. So it's just an example to, back up the things that we were saying. That's all.
Awesome. Well, I absolutely appreciate it. And again, it goes back to, as we talked earlier, that you're making impacts whether you know it or not. Other people are meeting you where you are. And when you show up with that heart of service, Carrie, when you show up with that true care that you have, it comes through. And so you just never know the little crumbs you're leaving behind that are changing lives that you may never touch, because what you give to person A, they very well may be passing to person B, and you have no idea. And yet you're the one that created that. And it can't happen without taking action. You notice throughout this entire book, there's action, there's activity related to every single step. And I love in this chapter that activity, that mindset of one day at a time right here in this chapter. That each morning is a rebirth. There, by the way, tonight, there is no guarantee that you're waking up. And he put that in the content. So every morning should be a celebration. First thing, a new birthday every single day. Caesar, come on in. What do you got, brother?
Wanted to add something that Carrie just mentioned. I've been making some phone calls and going through my old voicemails, like 4 or 5 years old, and connecting with them. And you'd be surprised how like old clients I've maybe met with once or twice. They're like, "Yeah, I remember you." And now, yeah, they like remember vividly your 1 or 2 connections that you'd had with them. Probably because of the great conversation or connection that you had with some people. So you just don't know. Same thing what you just mentioned, Carrie. You don't know when people were like how much they need to just hear somebody say, "Hey, I was just thinking about you. I wanted to chat." It makes them feel a great connection. The other point I wanted to bring in is how his dad, until his dying day, was calling um, the alcoholics that were recovering alcoholics that were staying sober for like their anniversary to the dying day, from when he could barely talk, and he had all these notes I was saying. So that's such powerful um, uh, note, right? That until the dying day of somebody is still giving and giving recognition to somebody else, because they know what type of struggle it is and what type of accomplishment it is to stay on that path. So I just want to bring that also to the group of that ties in with the ninja selling with the personal notes as well. That and that is more, it hits me more because like I mentioned, you coach, I've been utilizing that system now of personal notes, and I've been utilized it with this is an amazing house that I pass every time I go to my mother-in-law's house, that I just love the way it's presented. And I thought, like, you know what, let me write a letter and just literally saying, I enjoy passing by your home, and just that's it. And just saying how much I appreciate the way that you keep it. I actually helped on ChatGPT too, to help me like formulate the letter to make it even a little bit more beautiful than I felt that I can write at the time. So it was just that hit me with the notes and into the dying day. So I wanted to bring that to our group as well.
Yeah, and I definitely want to bring in page 146 into this conversation to really kind of inspire you guys to put that pause and that step and that appreciation and that gratitude and that presence. Because when you live a one more life as often as you can, you approach life with a higher degree of urgency. What if you were only allowed one last dance with the person you love? What if you could only have one more conversation with your child? What would you say to them? How would you say it? Think about your life. Think about every interaction as if you only had one more. Because you never know. You know, sometimes we're given those moments, the blessing of actually knowing that this may be the last conversation. I know I've had those in my world. Yet more often than not, it's not the case. Many of you probably don't know the name Tom Cooper. Tom Cooper, high-powered real estate in New York City. Tom and I worked together in the political world 30 years ago. Known him forever. I was having dinner last night with a friend of mine from the political world here in Dallas, Texas, who's also in real estate now. And so Tom came up in conversation because Tom was on my list. Tom was on my follow-up, and I didn't get to it. And Tom went out a 40-story window about 6 months ago in New York. What if that call had actually happened? You never know. You never know. So make sure if you have someone come to mind, if there's a thought that you should call someone, don't delay, make the call, and make that the context of the call. You know what? You came to mind, and I'm a firm believer that when I think of someone, I should pick up the phone, make the call. And that's the context. Tell me what's going on in your world. All right? So what else you guys have? We got 3 more minutes.
Well, I was just going to say that that is actually how my mama raised us. I and she guilt tripped us our entire youth with that to make us be nice to each other, and it worked. And now we are very, very three close siblings. But and then the other thing is, I actually did that the other day. Somebody had been coming to my mind over and over and over. It was a past client. So I haven't, I've moved out. I'm not even in that sphere or whatever. He's not in my sphere. I just reached out and called him anyway. And it turned out he moved to Birmingham, and he was so shocked that I called him, and that I wasn't calling about real estate, because I was like, no, I'm not calling about real estate. You've just really been on my mind. And I told him that my aunt, she's always said, if someone is on your mind, that's God putting it in your heart. You need to call them and see what's going on. So anyway, yep. So that was the way I was raised.
What a good
And it's
blessing to
good.
have that
Mhm.
already in your DNA when a lot of us are now learning to implement it. Carrie, close us out.
I'm just saying I put it in the thing too. So the person that I met with the other day, she's very interested in all that we're doing. So she is purchasing the book, and she may very well be here on Monday morning.
She's purchasing Profit First.
Yes.
Fantastic.